got to get straight to the point and say, here's how my 2 minutes is going to impact Black San Antonio as a whole. So that's how we do it. So the speakers, what I'm going to do, you know, I stand to the side, but when you see me come to the podium and kind of do like this or whatever, that's when your time is up as far as that. But we keep it short and sweet, and it moves really quick, and I think you'll enjoy it. One thing, please check your cell phones. Make sure those are turned off, because we are doing a live broadcast, so if your phone rings, it'll be like super loud on the tape for the people watching at home, so please check your phones. So without further ado, y'all, we're going to get it started, and we're going to get going. All right. Let me start off. One thing I want to add too, someone had mentioned, they said, Dr. Kelly, where's the food and drink? Where are the snacks and things like that? Usually when you have events, y'all lay it out. Here's the rule, y'all. I had to tell them this last year. At UIW, they are very strict about no food or drinks. That's why it looks still new in here and everything. So they're real strict about that. I would have loved to have had some refreshments for you, but we just strictly business today. So let's get it started, y'all. Y'all ready? Everybody ready? Everybody ready? All right, let's do it. Let's do it. First, I want to introduce the panelists so you know who's sitting here, so you have an idea. And this will also give the people time to move to their spot if they aren't in their spot. Starting off, we have a former DPS officer. And let me say this before I get on to him. We talk about police relations and things like that at all of these events. I have yet to actually get an officer here. When I ask them, they're like, nah, I'm not going to be at that. I'm not coming. But this year, I finally got one here. He's a retired DPS officer. Give it up for Mr. James D. Bro. Please stand, sir. Wave at the crowd. All right. All right. Also, we already introduced him, but he's a panelist too, Reverend Trevor Alexander. All right. All right. And we have a gentleman who is the director of one of our youth facilities here, but his interesting connection, he is from the St. Louis Ferguson area, so we always bring him in as our Ferguson expert. Let's give it up for Mr. Gerald Givens. All right. And we have here from the Nation of Islam, who's actually in charge of the San Antonio Study Group under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's give it up for Brother Cedric Muhammad. Okay. Who attended the Million Man March, so he's going to give us a first-hand account. It's going to be, I'm excited about that part. We have here one of our highest-ranking city officials in the city of San Antonio, Councilman Alan Warwick. Give it up for Councilman. All right. Let's see, did show up? Shokari, I don't think he can. There he is, I got a spot for you. Come on up, right? Come on up to the middle. He is the founder of Dream Week, also owns one of the top advertising agencies in the state, Mr. Shokari Nakpodia. Come on up, come on up. You can just fill that spot right there. I think somebody took your original seat, so we're just going to put you in the dead center in the middle there. Also, one of our top city officials who is very, very important to our county, who helps businesses out, who really, really helps us out. I need to get with her on my business. I'm so busy doing national stuff, I need to take care of my own county. So I'm going to sit down with her real soon. One of our dear panelists who did such a great job last year, Ms. Renee Watson. Please stand, from Bexar County. All right. And also, former city councilman, was a original member of the majority of civil rights things that have gone on in this city right here, just very historic, Mr. Mario Salas, sir, okay. Also, the president of the Texas Association of Black Chambers of Commerce, Mr. Christopher Herring, right there, all right. Chris tried to blend in with the crowd a minute ago, see, I had to bring him on up here. Also, these events, we get two complaints sometimes from these. We talk about the young people, but the young people usually aren't here. So I said, not only we're going to make sure they're here, I'm going to make sure they're on the panel. So this gentleman, he is a student at Palo Alto College. How I know about him, I had the Fathers and Sons Conference. He stood up and spoke, and everybody said, who is that young man? You know, he's deep. I like what he's saying. So I invited him out. Mr. Damon Lake, please stand, Damon. All right. Another gentleman who is big on our east side for protecting our youth and looking out for our youth. He's head of his own foundation, and we're going to talk a lot about that, but just a very important guy. I'm glad that we were able to connect, Mr. Taj Matthews. All right. All right. So, y'all, that's a lot of clapping today. Look, you go to events, it's 4 people on the panel. We 20 deep on the panel, y'all. The next gentleman, he is a member of the U.S. Navy. He came to my event at Wagner High School. He was just there as a volunteer. I said, you know, hey, welcome you, come on in. And he those boys were there with their pants sagging, and he just stopped the whole event. It was like, pull your pants up. I said, man, I got to have him as a panelist. Mr. Naaman Richardson. All right. A gentleman who is one of the only African-American pastors of a church in the medical center. I used to live in that area, and I always was like, how come somebody hasn't thought of putting a church? All our churches on the east side, why is there not a church for all these people that live on the northwest side? And he's got that. The pastor of St. John Baptist Church, Reverend Herman Price. Okay. All right. And watch this, y'all. Just coming in the back, perfect timing. She is the pastor, one of the only female pastors of a large congregation. Give it up for Pastor Sharon Grant. Come on in. We can have a seat for you right in the center there for you. Come on in. Perfect timing. And last but not, I still got more. Two gentlemen here who are, we'll let her come on in. Show's giving up his seat. Yeah, you must be from Nigeria, having a gentleman, those distinguished Nigerian gentlemen. I like that. This next gentleman, he is one of the highest ranking medical officials in the city of San Antonio. He is a physician. Let's give it up for Dr. Derek Young with WellMed. Also, one of our distinguished physicians, an emergency room physician here in town, Dr. Rudyard Hilliard. All right. And if you know that name, if that name Hilliard rings a bell, his dad, the legendary Dr. Hilliard, that is his father. So a great family for San Antonio. Great family. Okay. Also, last but not least, I wanted to save her for last because her office, this is one of the offices that covers the largest amount of area in the city. You know, they're covering the city, the county, and all of that. She works directly for Senator Menendez. Let's give it up for Dr. LaTronda Darnell. All right. Also got to recognize the former Justice of the Peace, took care of the Eastside for many years, just in many capacities, just does it all. Good friend of mine, Mr. Byron Miller, a Morehouse man. All right. And I'm seeing more people. I'm going to keep going. As we said, we had Cedric Muhammad here, who represents San Antonio for the Nation of Islam. Well, the student minister for Austin is here, one of the most dynamic speakers you'll ever hear. Minister Robert Muhammad, please stand, sir. All right. There he is. And did I miss anybody? Because y'all switched up the seating on me and everything. I think I got, yeah. Now, look, let me tell you his story, why I missed him. Right? And look, I can miss him because he's a former UT grad. He was in Atlanta, and he was worried about the weather and making it down here and everything. And so I was like, okay, no problem if you don't make it. He texted me, he said, I'm coming. I'm there. I'm not missing that. One of the youngest college professors in the state of Texas from UTSA, Dr. Langston Clark, right here. Give it up for him. Okay. All righty. Also, I want to recognize one organization I recently joined. I'm into a lot of organizations because I know we have to spread ourselves within the community in various ways, and I see two representatives from this organization. One of our assistant district governors for Rotary International, Xavier Tosin, please stand. Okay. And the district governor who made history as one of the first, if not the first, or at least the only African-American, because there's not too many of us that are rising up the top in that, but Rotary International is very important. So the district governor, Mr. Lou Miller, please stand. All right. And here's the thing, if I forgot you, I'm going to see you eventually. So we're going to go ahead and get it started. Look, we'll spend the whole event doing introductions. Who we got? Yes, sir. Here we go. Another late edition, but I got him. He's on there. They called me and said, we need a student from UIW in this. I said, yeah, let's do it. I got my list already done, but let's add them in. How we going to meet at UIW and not have one of their black students here? Mr. Karai Fai is here. There he is. All right. Did I get everybody? Am I good? I'm good. Okay. Let's get it started, like Hammer would say. Let's get it started. It's time. I'm just going to start off. I was going to ease into it, but I kind of feel the energy in here today. I feel a good energy. I'm going to just start off with a heavy hitter topic. Just right off the bat, we're not going to build up. We're just going to talk about that young lady who was pulled out of her chair at Spring Valley High School in South Carolina. Let's just go right for it. The hottest news topic right now, in the country. It's still being talked about on social media, and we watch that. And as a former principal, when I saw that, I saw a lot of different things going on. So I want to start it off. And I'm going to start it off since I didn't know if he was coming, definitely, but I didn't have him on the list. But I want to let him address this question. Mr. Robert Muhammad, could you please stand, sir? Since you came all the way from Austin. So, regarding that incident, when the young lady, you know, I just want to go, and you've had a chance to watch the video, correct? You have? I want to know, when you witnessed that, and when you saw that occur, when you saw all of that happen, and now it's over, we saw that the officer got fired, what were you thinking? You know, as a leader there, a community leader in Austin, what is the next step? Where do we go from here when all that happens is that the officer gets fired, when one of our black young ladies, our young black women, is pulled out of a chair like that? What's next?
Well, first, I'd just like to start off with thanking you for inviting me and us to such a great gathering, and we appreciate the work that you're doing. But I would like to say this, that we commend the school board for beginning and starting a step of reparation and regeneration in the school system. And it's just a start. But there has to be an overhaul to the school system as far as the police and safety is concerned. There has to be an overhaul of the view of our children and our students. There has to be an overhaul of the management of these institutions, because when I saw that at first, just to be quite honest with all of you, what I saw was a reflection of some of the old slave codes that says that if you are disciplining a slave, this one in particular from Virginia, and in the instance that you're disciplining that slave and that slave is murdered or dies or is injured, the individual that's disciplining that slave shall not be charged with any felony. And so we see this all throughout the country. This is not an isolated incident. This is a buildup of things. And so we commend the school board for starting somewhere by firing this officer. That sends a small message. But we have to move forward with overhauling this policing of our students and our communities, and we have to scale back on the militarization of policing. And those of us that are a part of the community, we must stand up and we must give back to our communities and begin to start to assist. There's a generational gap, and our children are out there without guidance. We must go back, and when I say give back, we must go back and become fixtures in our community and begin to guide them in the right direction.
Thank you, thank you. Let's give it up for Minister Muhammad. All right, all right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, remember, we're focused on solutions. So what I'm hearing, when I heard, all I heard was overhaul. So there has to be some systematic change. So that's where we're going. I hope we have a recorder here, somebody who likes to write stuff down, because I'm going to definitely come back to this. So let's take it from that. Now I'm hearing an overhaul, a change. That's the school system. Now let's move over to law enforcement, because when we say overhaul, all of this ties together. Now we're seeing a mixing of law enforcement getting involved in the classroom. See, when I was a principal, they just called me. Now they call the officer. The officer was only called if it was totally out of control. Now the officer is the first one in there. So this is starting to mix. Law enforcement. Mr. Debro, please stand, sir. Former DPS officer, when I first spoke with him, the first thing we talked about was Sandra Bland. And he mentioned that he was almost embarrassed to be affiliated after seeing somebody violate the procedures and things like that. And like I said, we've been wanting an officer to speak for so long. This is what we've been wanting. I want to know your opinion. After when we witnessed a young lady get pulled out of her chair, but time has passed and we slowly are forgetting the young lady who died in the jail there in Prairie View. Give me your opinion as a DPS officer of that whole incident. Just break it down for us.
I don't think I'm going to need that mic.
Okay. All right. You got 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. Let me say something about police and how they're supposed to conduct themselves. I looked at the video. This is just a quick snapshot.
I need you to have them bring
One
them
of
up
the things I
front.
want to
and
talk
then-
about
Can't do
is
that.
the
Can't do
second
that. You
approach,
can't do that. Okay.
where she said he said, would you mind putting out the cigarette? And she said, I'm not under arrest. That's true, so why put it out? And there's no justification to put something out if it's not in violation. Although you have to understand that cigarette could probably be used as a weapon inflicted upon him, but he still could have taken himself back. But let me just get down to this real quick, because this is what really got me. She said this, I can't wait to go to court. And that doesn't sound like a person that wants to commit suicide. So there's some very telling things in this video. There are many things I'd like to share, but let me give you a solution. The solution is this. Know your constitutional rights. Police have generally all of them, but more specifically, procedure is the Fourth Amendment. That's seizing you. They have to be in accord with that. Second one is the Fifth Amendment. You have a right to remain silent and not say anything. You don't want to say something, insert your Fifth Amendment right. Hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Then if they just keep pressing about anything, you can invoke your Sixth Amendment right, which is a right to counsel. So go back over those, look at those, and I think we need to start asserting those rights until we get down to police who are actually the true devils themselves.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Give it up for Officer Debro. All right, all right. And to add to that, what I tell my young men in my mentoring program, I understand the laws and things like that, but we as young black men, we got to live to see another day. I tell them, you may know the laws, you may have it back and forth, but say yes, sir, and no, sir, and you fight later. You fight with your lawyer. You do all that, but on the spot is not the place. That's not the place. But great, great insight from somebody that's been there and done that. Tying that in. So it's bleeding over. It's into our schools. It's our police stops. Now an incident happens right there in South Carolina also, where a young man goes into one of our churches and starts shooting in the church. Among the black community, you know that's our sacred space, and the Lord's going to protect the church and all of those things, but that line was crossed. So one of our pastors we have here today, my co-host, Reverend Alexander, to address that, because what we're going to do, we're going to touch on each issue and connect all of this together. I'm concerned that incident happened and we went back to business as usual. I thought I'd see a change, because I don't mind seeing a police officer at the church or in the church. That doesn't, that doesn't affect me. Why did we let that happen and we just went right back to business as usual? And somebody could have walked in this morning to Sunday service and we'd be reading about it on our phones right now. Your opinion, sir?
Oh, Lord. And I don't have 2 minutes, sir. Okay. Well, first I'm going to say this. That's a touchy subject for many. We had a discussion in my church this morning. And some people say, well, let the Lord lead. Well, the Lord can lead. I'm retired military. My congregation, I guess, is somewhere in about 65%, maybe 70% retired military. So we don't have a problem with concealed weapons. So if you come in, you might be shocked. Anyway, shocked, one or two. But I think there's several things that we need to look at. There's something going on in our society where there's a lot of anger, hostility, hatred, prejudice is on the increase. We have to work at diminishing some of these things. You can't completely stomp it out. So one of the things that we have been doing here at UIW is trying to improve race relationships in our community. One of the reasons why it's easy to host something like this, because this is on a strategic plan. I think one of the reasons why churches went back to business as usual, it costs money. To get security to come to your church is money. If you're a small church, you don't have the budget. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're bringing the chair right here. Okay. Yeah, just put the chair right there. Yeah. Yes. Got to. Right there, good. You can take that right there. You go. Yeah. Put it right there. anyway, so thank you. So back to what I was saying, it's financial. The other thing is, if you decide to go with law enforcement, your insurance in your church is going to increase drastically. So it costs money to have security. So we talked about this morning, putting a plan in place. Those who are licensed to carry, we got to check with our insurance company what that means for us, all of that. But the average church cannot afford to have armed guards. Although, I'm just telling you all, there's some churches, be careful.
Give it up for Reverend Alexander, y'all. Okay. So it's interesting to hear that, because unfortunately the pastors that I spoke with said, God's going to protect our church. I'm not having guns in here. I'm not going to have that. When we've got to decide, are we at a point where we have to start thinking like Reverend Alexander and protect it? So that's something to think about. And tying it back to our schools, as a former principal, I look at all these entries. Anybody work in the education center? Any educators? Raise your hand. Let's give it up for our educators, y'all. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. Our schools have so many entries and exits, right? I've always said, how come schools aren't like airports? See, we value our airports because there's billions of dollars in that, right? We fix them after 9/11. We fix all of that. We correct it. And there's very few airport incidents. You hear about one here and there, but there are thousands and thousands of flights going on incident-free. Why can't our schools be locked down like that? Why can't our churches? So that's something we want to keep on your mind with that. Now, going full circle, specifically, if we round it down to a citywide thing, we saw what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. It happened, we got excited about it, we heard the talk about it, then it died down. So, Mr. Givens, Gerald Givens, please stand, sir. I hear very few people ask, what's going on in Ferguson now? How did it all turn out? What's the result of this? Give us an update. Since you're from that area, what has occurred since the incident and how have things changed there?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Right now, what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri is that there's an organization called Operation Hope that acknowledged something that most of us never heard about. When Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, he, of course, did the Emancipation Proclamation. And the very next thing that he did was he created the Freedmen's Bureau's Act. After he created the Freedmen's Bureau Act, that instituted the Freedmen's Bureau Bank. And 2 weeks later, after Abraham Lincoln did that, he was assassinated. Now, 4 years later, the Freedmen's Bureau was stopped. Frederick Douglass tried to save it. He came in with $10,000 and tried to fix it, but they wouldn't let him do it. Frederick Douglass said at that particular time, that set slaves back 10 years. I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, that set Black America back. So right now, Ferguson is working with several different organizations from around the country are trying to fix the social economics that exist in Ferguson. If we can get that model right in Ferguson, we can do it in Chicago, Detroit. We can do it in Atlanta. We can do it all across the country. But that's where it's going to start. Collective economics. We have to pull together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Gerald Givens, Gerald Givens. So, looking at cities, looking at schools, putting it all together, now action comes in place. But when we try to do action or try to do something as the community, we get divided. So someone recently tried to do a big initiative to try to make things happen, and all we heard was a lot of criticism. So we hear this idea of a 1,000,000-man march. As soon as the idea entered, they go, who's doing it? Who is that doing? Minister Farrakhan, oh, he's against the Jews. He's against that. I'm not supporting that. I'm not going to this. I'm not doing this. Just as much positive as we saw from our own community, we saw the negative. But after it happened, and after everyone saw the pictures, everybody's like, oh, that was a great event. We all came together. We did this. I have a gentleman who was there. Minister Muhammad, please stand. Cedric Muhammad. I want you to give us a first-hand account of what happened. I'm going to tell you my story, one of the reasons I wasn't there. The business I'm in, when they book me to speak at a school, they book on certain dates. I rarely get booked to speak on a Saturday. Well, I get a call to speak on that day. You know, I feel that was some kind of conspiracy or something like that, forcing me to have to worry about my livelihood as far as going to that. But just give us the account of what happened since meeting. How many were there? Did anybody attend? Let's give it up for those who went to D.C., Since we weren't there, give us a 2-minute summary of the power and just what we saw in pictures. You were there. Tell us about it, sir.
He had to give me 2 minutes because I come from 5 preachers, and the brother that just spoke from Austin is my biological brother, and he almost got winded. So I'm going to try to go 20 minutes, like you said, and we're going to get this right. But I want to point out some things that we did see, because there were so many myths, so many concerns that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan may have been leading young black men and women into a race war. I want to share with you what we actually saw. They were concerned that we were going to tear up the Capitol, that we were going to destroy some of the artifacts that were there, some of the statues. They were concerned that we were going to get into a violent altercation with the police department. But this is what I saw. While there, I saw polls of black men and women, disciplined, standing together, very attentive, listening to the speakers as well as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we did not see 1 ounce of violence. No one was hurt, no one killed anybody, nothing was torn up on the mall. In fact, afterwards, we cleaned up the mall and left it just like it was before we came. What I saw on the mall, for some of us that were afraid that this was a racially biased movement, because justice is just that. Injustice is just that. It doesn't necessarily stop with black folks. It just happens to happen, no, not happen. By design, it happens more often in the black community. But what I saw were the Mexican or Hispanic culture and the people in that community, as well as the Native Americans in our communities abroad. And we saw them embracing each other. We saw teepees, we saw an EPs. You're going to stop me? I'm not going to stop. But, we saw an EPs, and we also saw in the audience Muslims and Christians. I'm going to say that again. Muslims and Christians, otra vez, mira. Muslims and Christians were holding hands together in prayer, in unity. We saw the poor whites in the audience praying and listening attentively to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the speakers abroad. When we left there, that evening, there was not one violent incident. We left in peace, and we delivered what the minister's message was deliver the Muslims program to Congress. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
As I was
Minister Muhammad. All right. It was powerful. And the thing is, they did it. You did it. So many people were rooting against it, our own people, and they did it again. How many, 20 years later? 20 years later. So that was great. That was great. So let's stay on the D.C. thing. Since we're going round circle, here's an issue among our community that we really don't have an answer. We usually, as black people, have an answer to everything. We have our opinion, but this is one. When I talk to our scholars, we have a lot of our scholars in here, we don't have an answer to this question. Who are we going to vote for president? We don't know. Most of our people, to be honest, and you've heard it, the people I've talked to said, I already voted for Obama, I'm done. I voted for him twice, I'm not voting again. But all of the work that he's done, and look, since we're doing a live broadcast, let's just take time out and recognize our greatest president in the history of the United States, Barack Obama. Hey, You can say what you want. What do they say? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. The numbers are there. Speaking of that, I'm going to tell y'all a quick story. So I was booked to speak at this event, a big event, 2 minutes. This is going to be 30 seconds. They called me at the last minute and said, Dr. Kelly, we're concerned about your affiliations with President Obama. You know, we were researching you, and there was some ties to that, like that. I said, yeah, he's the president? Like, what's the problem, you know, with that? Well, we just wanted to know, could you turn in a copy of your speech ahead of time so we make sure that we can make sure it's not anything about Obama in there? I said, you know what, y'all need to find y'all another speaker for this event. And I was done. But that's how bad. I was speaking when President Bush was in office. I never got that response. So that's what we're facing. That's what we're facing. So this next question. This goes to a gentleman who's in the business of politics, one of our only African Americans who's representing us. And I wanted to tie this question. I don't know if I gave him advance warning on this. So, Councilman Ward, please stand, sir. So, look, he thought I was going to ask him about the MLK March or something. No. Well, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover that. We are going to cover it. We're going to cover it. We're going to cover it. Because that, and let me tell you, that incident is an example. We're going to use an example of how we come together as a people and how we fix things and how we get it right? But this one right here is a bigger cause we got to look at. I'm not going to ask you to endorse anybody at this time, but from your experience in politics and things like that, what direction should we even be aiming or going in this confused jumble that we call a election?
Thank you, Ron. Again, I'm Alan Warwick, City Councilman for District 2 for the City of San Antonio, and this is not what I expected, but it's really not that tough a question. What's going on in the black community, all of these changes and all of these events that you've already spoken about, from Ferguson to the Million Man March, while there was no coverage there, we need a president that's going to support these issues, but also support a future for black economics, which is really what Joe was saying. How do we get to a place where African Americans and white people, the disparities that exist now are not there, and what president is going to push us in that direction? It's a difficult question, but the only other thing that I say is we need a president that looks presidential. We don't need a TV star or a reality star, because we're the world's leader. The United States is the world's leader. If we put out a joke, we're going to be considered a joke for future generations. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to step away from the script real quick, and I'm going to direct this question to a young lady that's a student here at UIW. Young ladies that are students here, raise your hand. Where's Reverend Alexander's daughter? I saw her somewhere. Where is she? She stepped out. One lady right in the red. I want to direct this to you since this is your campus. And since we're just going to call it out like that, and you can just answer from there. You don't have to give an explanation of it. You think Hillary Clinton is the one?
Actually, I don't know. I feel like she's just speaking, just saying things that we want to hear.
Oh.
Everybody else is saying things we want to hear.
Right.
That's what other presidents have done. That's what Obama did, what he said.
Got it.
So honestly, I wouldn't vote for her.
Oh. Thank you. Give it up. All right. And while we have a little break, those of you that are standing, I'd hate for you to have to stand the whole time. Fill in seats, feel free. We got plenty of seats. You know, the rule is just you face toward the front, you know, when you cross by. There we go. Okay. That's Judge Conley coming in. Glad to see you, sir. Historic man. Let's give it up for Jim Conley. All right. A man that broke down a lot of barriers in this city, so we're gonna definitely talk to you in a minute. I wanted everybody to see it. Anybody that's still standing now, they must want to stand because I offered you a seat. Now let's keep it moving. Now, we're covering everything top down. I think we've made it to our city now. The issue, I'm going to tell you what happened with this. There's a program, the My Brother's Keeper program. Y'all familiar with that? You're familiar with that? Well, they asked me to be a part of that from the beginning. I was the keynote speaker. I was on the front of the paper with it and all of these things like that. And I did that, and I'm ready to go, and I'm ready. And I was like, okay, where's the follow-up? Nobody got with me, so I had to press the issue. And I met with 2 Hispanic ladies and a white lady who were in charge of the follow-up. I was surprised at that, but I was like, hey, let's go with it. And I explained to them my vision of helping the young black boys in San Antonio, and they immediately stopped me and said, whoa, 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 whoa. The plan for Obama says boys of color. And in this city, blacks are only about 7%. You're talking a little bit too much of this black stuff. Few weeks later from that, people think I'm still affiliated with My Brother's Keeper. A few weeks later than that, I received an email saying, we're choosing to go in a different direction right now. I said, okay, I'm used to that in San Antonio. I'm just going to charge up and continue and develop the largest mentoring program on my own. But when I heard them say that, after they knew what I wanted to do for the black boys in San Antonio, I said, we don't have a voice. We do not have a voice. We're going to have to take our voice. So I want to get my specialists on the voice, on the marketing and things like that. Mr. Nakpodi, where's Show Nakpodi at? Where's he at? There in the front. There we go. Please stand, sir. Since this is your specialty area and you've taken Dream Week, now let's just start with his event he had. Just like there was talk against the Million Man March, I would love to have been in the room with some of the things you've heard, with people telling you what you can't do and what you shouldn't be doing and those things like that. And you're an example of someone who has taken that voice. Instead of waiting around for somebody to give it to you, you've taken it. What can we do to be heard and keep that tragedy what happened with the My Brother's Keeper? And y'all, especially that, as soon as they heard that, Austin called me. They said, Dr. Kelly, you can come up here and do whatever you want with the black boys in Austin. And unfortunately, I'm doing that in Austin. But how do we keep that from happening again and keep our voice here in San Antonio?
Well, I'm not going to answer for millions and millions of African Americans and black people. So, but in starting, I think we need to applaud ourselves for just being here on a Sunday afternoon. I think it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful sight. And of course, everyone knows how you do it and how well you do it. I come from a country, Nigeria, where you have hundreds of tribes. So we have Africans, Nigerians, Urhobo, and several tribes. So in Nigeria alone, there are about 200 tribes, 200. And we have distinct languages as black folks in Nigeria. So the idea of being black is one thing, or being African American is one thing. It's a very strange concept for Africans who were about 2 generations ago. They would have found the idea Africa, or the idea Nigeria, a kind of a strange concept. So it's in the African American that we see a unified African black person. And it also means that it's through the African American that we see the kind of the future, the interface between the Western culture and what it is that was already the African. So when I come in here and I look at all the opportunities, the first thing I look at and say, well, the African Americans who were brought here had nothing. Nobody in this room has nothing. So something changed. Where can we find the most direct stream of change, positive change in the African American? And even though we have issues with San Antonio is a place where I believe has been a little bit more favorable than other places for that change. And for that reason, when we have a march that is one of the largest in the nation, I look at it and say, well, what other questions can we ask of ourselves as Africans, or as Nigerians, or as blacks, or as San Antonio black folks? What other questions can we ask, and how can we introduce that conversation and make it a more kind of comprehensive question and not just be a label? Thank you.
Thank you. And tell us about Dream Week. What are the dates of Dream Week?
8th to the 19th.
January, he's taking the whole month up, y'all. January 8th through 19th. Look out for him. Now, that keeps me thinking, from hearing what you say, it sounds like we got to make some money in order to get recognized also, right? I want to ask a question, and for this one, I got to have our business expert stand. Renee Watson, please stand for us, ma'am. Give it up for Renee. I I want Ms. Watson to look at the crowd as I ask this question. How many of you own businesses, and in some form or another, part-time, full-time, whatever? Give it up for all our black business owners in here, okay, okay. From what I see in this city, our businesses have to make some money in order for us to get noticed or get recognized. At some point, we gotta have to make some money. What do we need to do to get a black business up there with Valero and HEB and Frost? What is the step? What do you got?
Got to go to Dream Week for that. That's all I can say. That's a dream coming. You know, Dr. King asked that same question. Y'all talked about a little bit earlier, somebody talked about the history of the entrepreneurship. But remember Dr. King, when he was going to the People's Campaign, when they took him out. So can I get an amen? Y'all know y'all history, right? Now, many of you know or may not know, I'm a part of Bexar County. I do entrepreneurship and small business development. But one of the things that's real interesting for Solution is that we need to understand from the policy level how we play the game. So when we're talking about solutions, and I'll take my 90 seconds, because I was a delegate twice for Obama. And I got to sign my name at the National Convention for him to become President of the United States. And when I'm in the room walking around, and everybody is talking about Hillary Clinton in San Antonio and Bexar County, I was the only one for Barack Obama in that county courthouse. So you can imagine the struggle. And when we talk about politics, I've been a Democratic precinct chair for about 20 years. How many of you are registered to vote in this room? Now, I'm going to take your name, and I'm going to check your voting record. Because that's what it takes. Sometimes we say we vote. It's a lot of candidates in here. Anybody who's running for office, y'all stand up. Stand up. Be called out. Thank y'all so much. Anybody who has served as an elected official, please stand up. Now, everybody ought to get to know all of these gentlemen. It's too bad we didn't have any females stand up. Because y'all can be seated, because that's where we are right now too. So I know I'm down about 60 seconds. So when we're looking at solutions, part of what I do is also, we talk about, and all of these issues we've been here for this first hour was talking about social justice. I kind of focus my life and my work on economic justice. Because without economic justice, there is nothing running down. Because we're all chasing it. We're chasing that dollar instead of making that dollar. So in order to be able to part of that process, I got a nice office now. They finally took me out the garage at the county. When you come in the gate, and I see a lot of folks downtown, and you can't imagine how many African Americans and Africans and anybody of any color that come to the office that we say, we want you to be in business. But we also want you to look at the public policy of how we are included in that business. Because if we cannot count ourselves in that chain of economic justice, then we'll keep wearing those chains in that chain of social justice. And that's what we're all about.
Thank you. I like it. All right. That's it. And you have a study. You mentioned that you didn't think I was going to remember that. I remember everything. Give me a little short summary, AABE, right? Tell me about that.
Let me give my 15-second commercial for County Commissioner Tommy Calvert. Yeah. He's not here, but in his absence, let's congratulate him for all the things he's doing down at Bexar County. I've been working for 15 years to try to get some attention on the African American business community. We just did last month, he got successful at Bexar County Commissioner's Court. We entered an agreement and a partnership with University of Texas Center for Community and Business Research that we're going to finally put you in a book with some numbers, with some background. We're hiring Booker and his team to help us get the word out to the African American business community. And that is because of Commissioner Calvert. So you will be hearing from us. We'll be calling on each and every one of you to help us identify African American owned businesses, so we can bring them into not only the county, but all of the public policy that's around town and throughout the state and throughout the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Yes.
I would just like to say that Tommy is getting ready to catch a flight to Mexico City. That's why he's not here.
Okay, thank you. All right. And I'm gonna have to tease Tommy for a minute since he's got in there. He's so busy now. He's got a real job right there. You know, I call him and ask him to go stuff. He said, "Man, I'm at work now. I'm really here." So he right, exactly. So that was great. So we're talking about business. Let's stay on that because I was taught at a very young age. You know, immediately when I was a young college student, I said, I want to get into politics. That's what I want. And somebody pulled me aside and said, you better make some money first before you get into. And like, you make your money first and then you do that. So let's stay on that because the money, the bottom line is the dollar sign if we want a voice and if we want some power. Mr. Christopher Herring, please stand, sir. All right. So, as the president of the Texas Association of Black Chambers of Commerce, you deal with business a little bit, huh? You know a little something about business, right? I always go back, and I like how Ms. Watson broke it down about the HEBs, the Valeros, the Frost Bank, and people like that. But I always keep my eyes on that. I mean, I can't stand, when they told me there were 6 or 7 people that run San Antonio, I'm focused on how do I get to be number 8? How do I do it? What do you see in order for some of these hands that went up that own businesses? What are the steps they need to make so we can at least get one black powerhouse in San Antonio? What do we need to do, sir? Excuse me.
So that's a loaded question. It's a loaded question because we don't really invest in ourselves. And so until we start to invest in ourselves, which is financially, not just spiritually. I know that we pray for each other, but we do a horrible job at putting our money where our priorities are. It's been said you could actually tell who and what a man stands for by where he spends their money. And so today we have people who are at home watching the NBA, NFL, the World Series. That's where their priority is. We talk about this saying that Sister Renee had mentioned about entrepreneurship. And we find that whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the national level, or even the local level, we don't have enough blacks in business. And we've done a good job, though, at taking good jobs. But we've done a horrible job of establishing businesses in our communities. And so we wonder why our communities are being gentrified and being taken over. It's because we're not teaching at the very basic level at home the importance of having a business and providing jobs within your local community. That's the first solution. I don't have this dream that we're going to have a HEB or USAA or Valero, any of those other companies in our black community right now because we haven't even mastered the basics. The basics is also getting involved in being a part of something that's bigger than you. You know, when I look at it from the Texas Association for African American Chambers, and I'm the chairman, and we have 200,000 black businesses across our state, and we sit and we talk with Governor Abbott about how do we help our black community, but yet I don't see my black community or those business hands that went up being members of no chamber, not just the Texas chamber, but I'm talking about your local chamber. And so you can't cry about not being a part of something that's bigger than you when you're not willing to put your little, 2 cents together. We have to put our money together first. You know, Gerald said economics is a key to rebuilding Ferguson. Economics is a key to rebuilding everything. Our largest business in our community right now is a church. And that's not a business model that we need to be pushing by itself. And then I would encourage all those who are running for an elected position. You have to know what your organizations like TAC are saying to the governor so you can have a position on how do we strengthen black business. Because without it, you're making up stuff without it having any validation or facts. That's what we do a lot of. We have to break that trend.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Herring. That's it. So I'm hearing support each other, support our organizations, come together. Now, we've covered business. We're getting to the community level. Now there's a few issues that stick out when we start talking community. One that's just standing out to me as we start to address problems within the community is this issue going on in the school district where I attended school, Northeast Independent School District. If you've been following the news, there's some controversy going on over the name Robert E. Lee High School. We got a school that's named after a pretty infamous individual. And then y'all know who's going to answer this question. Mr. Mario Salas, please stand for us. I know you're very passionate about this, and I am too, because that's my school district right there. And I see, you know, we have one African American on that school board, and I'm waiting to hear more about it, and I'm hearing nothing but, you know, nothing's happening as far as that. And I know you're very, as a history and sociology professor, you're very knowledgeable on that. What do we need to do about the naming? Or is it that important? I hear many of our people say, oh, it's just a name, that's no big deal, cover some real issues, all of that. What are we going to do, sir?
All right. First of all, we need to congratulate the senior at Robert E. Lee High School named Kayla Wilson, who stood up to that school board all by herself and has been threatened in any number of ways by people who don't want her to do what she's doing. Oh, good, good. And let me say this, the next time she goes before that school board, all of us in this room need to be there at that school board. It's very important that we understand it's not just about a name. It's about a culture that has glorified people who believe in hatred. It's about a culture of people who have inspired the gunman that went into the room in the Carolina. It's about a culture that doesn't care anything about us and has been revived. If you go to Southern Poverty Law Center's website, you'll see a huge increase in the number of hate groups that have come about in this country since Obama's been elected. And the two are tied together. We have fought and I got to give Tommy Calvert credit, we fought at the Bexar County Commissioner's Court to remove all of the Confederate symbols, and they did that, a unanimous vote, and Tommy Calvert carried that charge. So we got to support Kayla Wilson. There's another statue in Travis Park dedicated to the fellows that fought for the slave owners. There's been no movement to remove that statue. Nothing has happened. That problem is not going to go away. We're going to keep fighting for that thing to be removed. If it takes me from now until February, I'm not going to stop bringing that up as an important issue. That statue needs to go, and anyone who knows what hate is all about knows that statue needs to go. So we need to involve masses of people to get involved with that, to make that happen. I hope we can do that at the city level, and then we have to take it to the state level, because at every courthouse in Texas, there's some Confederate symbol honoring people who did their very best to keep African Americans in slavery.
Come on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right. That's it. Great summary. Great summary. And here's the thing. We talk about that stuff, but that one has been done. I'm on the board of directors with the Alumni Association for University of Texas at Austin, where we have a black vice president. Many of you don't realize that the number 2 or 3 man there at UT in Austin is black, Dr. Gregory Vincent. And we got the statue removed at UT. People saying what you can't do and this and that, but the unfortunate thing, when we went to the meeting and we had the meeting for it, you could count on one hand the number of blacks that were there. The white students stood up and fought to get the statue removed, and we were nowhere to be found. So we got to do what we got to do, y'all. Stuff like that is important. Give it one more time from Mario Salas, former councilman. Okay. And Chris Herring, since I know you connected, you can just stand, tell us you were there with Kayla Wilson. And the thing is, I invited her there. Look, she's like Tommy Calvert now. She's too busy. They said, she has another engagement. She won't be able to make it today. I was like, man, I thought we could at least get her here, but she was occupied today. But you were there. Can you give us a short recap of what it was like, just what the environment when she was there at the school board meeting?
What was said is very true. It's a very hostile environment. And you can actually go on Northeast ISD's website and you can see the actual video. And I was happy that Gerald Gibbons, he came, and Pastor Kim came from the church. And, we're at the point in time now where we have to just stand. I've heard people say, well, it's not really important. Are you crazy? I mean, I've heard people say that, it's not really all that important. We have the 18-year-old National Honor Society now student who stood up for us. And the best that we can do is just look and say, well, I don't know if I can make it. The next meeting is on November 9th. It's on a Monday. And they're going
Write that down.
Because of the last meeting, the Board of Trustees, who was non-African American, an attorney, said that he wanted to a study of how did UT go about making the change in other schools. So they agreed to a report. But that report was only because we said that it was a hostile environment, and it was only because one board member really took action. Our African-American Board of Trustees took no action, except to second a motion after it was already, done.
Okay.
So we can't always rely on people who look like us.
Right.
We have to go ahead and just call the truth the truth.
Right.
Calling the truth.
Right.
We do need for the board to understand, and we also ask for NEISD, for all those who are voting, to vote the bond down. Vote the bond down, because, until we get justice, there is no bond.
Right. All right.
Money that's even just to say this, the Roosevelt cluster, okay, that has majority minority kids,
Right.
don't even have libraries
Right.
in the schools. So how can we continue to let a school district, basically put us down with the symbolism, and then not have librarians to help our kids navigate through these schools where our kids are?
Right.
There's no way that they can get a good
All right.
education until we come out and support, because this is where we are right now. This is our movement right here in San Antonio.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Mario Salas. Yes, sir. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We could keep the name of Lee. Spike Lee's not a bad name.
Right.
So the school board needs to make that adjustment.
Right.
We did that at Jeff Davis.
Right.
School's named Jefferson Davis.
Right.
We changed it to
S.A.
S.A. Davis
Davis.
way back when Karen Conley was the state rep.
Right.
Of course, he was the president of local NAACP. That was a big change. We can find another Lee. It doesn't have to be that Lee.
Right.
And so I think that's what we need to do.
There we go. There we go. Thank you once again on the Robert E. Lee thing. And let me tell you a real connection to that. Roosevelt High School has an African-American principal, right? And that's my former school. My program, unfortunately, and what I do in consulting, I end up spending more time in the upper middle class school districts because they have the money to bring in speakers and consultants and things like that. For years, I have contacted Roosevelt High School and offered my services for free. I can't even get through the secretary, y'all. They don't call you back. They don't do that. And I see that, and I don't blame the people working there. But we have African Americans who are working within the school system whose hands are tied. Do you know they're actually told, don't bring no black speakers in here. Don't do that. So it's a system that we almost have to infiltrate. And guess who has the most power? As someone who works with school districts, you may not realize, especially with Northeast School District, the parents have the power. If you make noise and you're down there and you're saying stuff and you're visible at all times, they really do listen. So remember that, because that is something that we can definitely tie in. And let's keep it moving to this aspect of things. I wanted to make sure this was on the program because this is the foundation of it all. Our young black men's perspective. I have two young men stand. Mr. Fies, is it Fies? Faze, last name? And Mr. Lake, please stand. Give it up for them. Give it up for them. Mr. Faze, how old are you, sir? 21. How old are you, sir? 28. Two young men under the age of 30. The majority of the issues that we cover today affects them directly in a way that us that are 40 and above cannot even relate to, because we're part of an entirely different generation. So we have all of these meetings, we have these events, and we talk about you and your experience, but most of the time you're not there. Maybe because you didn't know about it. Maybe because you weren't invited. You weren't there. I wasn't there when I was your age. I figured out later that this stuff was important. Give me what it's like and what you experienced as a young black man today. And we'll start with you, being on this campus, because we know you're a dime a dozen. You're not a dime a dozen here. You're a rare, endangered species walking these streets and hallways here. Tell me about your experiences of some of the things you face daily as an African-American male in today's society.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you guys. I'd like to just say that being a student here and in San Antonio, that I've worked in the businesses around for a while now. I had my first job in middle school, and I've been fired and let go and watched and judged because of my skin. And as you said, I'm not like many of the other gentlemen, and a lot of my colleagues, my common students that I've grown up with, they don't have the same philosophy as me. They don't carry themselves the same way I do. So I believe that there's a lack of encouragement. I grew up without a father, so a lot of people who I looked up to were my professors, and mind you, they were black and African American, and so it was really hard to find somebody who believed in me and who wanted to encourage me to stand up for myself and for my fellow African Americans. So I think that in this city, we need encouragement for the young men and women here, especially the ones who are African American, because it's hard to find.
Give it up, give it up. All right, what are UIW students? All right. Now, Mr. Lake, we've talked, and I've mentored him through the process of a lot of the things that he's wanted to do, and it's interesting hearing those stories because some of them are the same as what I experienced, but some of the things that you faced, it's a whole different animal that I think a lot of our older African Americans did not even realize. Give us just an example of some of the things that you're dealing with, some of the struggles you've had that you have to face every day, just based on your appearance, based on your skin color, based upon your aspirations and how confident you are. Tell us about it.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Damon Lake. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee originally. I've been here in San Antonio, Texas for about 2.5 years now. And I guess you could say, well, I'll just put it to you plain. I'll put it to you because I worked in the construction industry for a while, and I really enjoy working with my hands and really exerting my energy on the work. But what I'm facing is, what I have faced, I had to move away from the construction industry, but I have faced what is normally called here in the construction industry, it's dubbed the nature of the beast. That's just the way things are. That's just the way things go. When you can see blatant discrimination, when you could see blatant mistreatment, when all I need is this certification for my promotion and the person right next to me gets the seat in the classroom and there's still room in the classroom for me, but I don't get a seat in the classroom. Oh, well, that's just how things go. You know, don't make too much noise, stay quiet as you can, and just keep working. Just, you know, moving forward from that and gaining from those experiences and gaining strength from experiences being discriminated against, it's giving me a certain kind of strength, if you will. But what I see and what I'm really afraid of, what I'm very afraid of, and this spans all the way up to senior African Americans, all the way to those of us who are coming into preschool right now. African Americans have readily and availably accepted assimilation. We are okay with that. You have to look this way. Your hair needs to look this way. You have to speak this way. You need this degree. You need that degree. We have readily handed over our identity to the United States, to the American form of assimilation. We have basically given our identity away with no battle, with no fight. And so when I was facing discrimination on the job sites, and you know, I reached out and had conversations with many of you in this room, outraged about African American leadership here in the city, outraged about how things, the nature of the beast, operate. A lot of times it just trickles right back into assimilation. Well, this is what you're going to have to do to get yourself to where you want to be. And I feel like a big part of me is going to have to hand over a big part of my African, rather than American, my African identity is going to have to be sort of dissolved in order for me to be able to be successful in this place.
Thank you. All right, thank you, both gentlemen. Thank you, thank you. Wow, wow. And I got to point this out about Damon. The whole connection with My Brother's Keeper and all of that, I wasn't contacted by the city or the organization putting it on. This young man is the one that got me. He's, how old are you, 31? 28. And he fought to get me in there. He went to the meetings. You went to the various committee meetings and realized we weren't being represented. And he took charge. And I didn't even know what was going on. And he was there and he was making it happen. So give it up for him one more time. He's working, y'all. He's working. He's working. Oh, let's keep it on the youth. Let's keep it on the youth. Yes, sir. Reverend Price. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You had mentioned My Brother's Keeper. In the beginning, when that was put together, we actually had 2 pastors from the community of churches that was a part of that group in the beginning. Early this year, we raised money on Good Friday to sow into the initial funding, you know. So I think as a community, we have to be more demanding. You got to stay engaged. You know, you can't You know, if the issue is a real issue, then you have to passionately speak about it. You know, if you're concerned with Confederacy at Robert E. Lee, you got to be concerned with it downtown. You know, and so I think that as a community, we gotta, if we're gonna fight, then fight.
All right, Reverend Price, Reverend Price. So to keep it on that, on the whole youth concept, this gentleman here is involved with his foundation and working directly on the east side. Now, a lot of us, we talk about the east side, but we don't all live on the east side. So it's just talk if we're not in there and seeing what's going on every day, right? Yeah, hopefully. And I haven't really experienced a true east side since I was assistant principal at Martin Luther King Middle School. I moved on, and MLK, got some MLK people in here, okay? And seeing those kids, I did something about 3 or 4 years ago. It just made me wonder and try to track down some of my students. And so I found some on Facebook and various places, and I started to ask, what happened to so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? Where's this person? Almost 90% of the kids who were in my office all the time while I was the assistant principal are either dead or in jail. Those East Side kids. Many of them never made it to Sam Houston. So, Taj Matthews, since you're directly, please stand, sir. Since you're directly involved, and I know you were recently involved in trying to make some sense out of that last tragic killing that they had, a young man I think that you knew personally as far as that. You're boots on the ground, you're there, you're actually doing it. What is the state, how bad is it really for our black youth on the east side, and what can we do to improve those conditions?
I'm going to say this, the idea about the east side and how bad it is a very big myth that has been fed for decades. I'm getting over a little illness, that's why I'm sounding like I am. But I will tell this to you. I run a program for at-risk teenagers. And in that program, I have a lot of teenagers. And when I say that, over the last 4 years, I've had over 1,100 teenagers come through my door. And they come from across the city of San Antonio. Now, the tragedy that we have with that is that we're dealing with a generation of lost souls. Worse than that, we're dealing with parents that are a generation of lost souls. 9 times out of 10, when I meet many of these kids, you'll wonder what in the world. And then when you meet their parent, you get every answer you want to know. I think Ms. Watson up here has mentored a couple of our young ladies, and she can tell you the same thing. But I'm also tell you what, this is not just an East Side problem, this is a national problem. And the reason why it's a national problem is because of what we've allowed to happen within our community. Many of us get educated, we go away, we don't bring any of that knowledge back. We have a lot, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm gonna put it out there. Every church I go to, and I make pastors mad every time I say it, I don't care. Every church I go to, I hear about, oh, we got to do this about our youth. Every political rally I go to, we got to do this about, I get sick every time I go to a debate or a forum, I get called in some kind of way about what we're doing. The tragedy is us. Many of these kids, if you sit and listen to what they're even listening to, the garbage that they're listening to, it will amaze you. Like I said, I've lost 6 teenagers in the past 12 months. Each one of them, I sit around, lectured, did everything I can. Them and their families both. And I'll tell you this, until we come together, until we can bring forums like this together, because I'm going to be real with you about this. We need more of the community in here. The information we get, it's real good for us to come in here and soak it all up. But it needs to be soaked up by more. That means next year we don't need to have it in here. We need to have it somewhere. Well, many of us need to work to get people there. But when it comes to the youth, many of you, as well as pastors, community members, whoever else, just plain parents, need to get more involved, more engaged, exposing them to things. That's my 2 minutes.
Great. Taj Matthews, y'all. Taj Matthews. Okay. Now going to the center of the room, since we're still on the youth. We have a gentleman here, Mr. Dr. Derek Young, please stand, who attended UT with me. We were there, and we dealt with a lot of the racial issues of being the few black students there, and you were able to graduate there from UT, go on to medical school and do those things, and you know, just all types of accomplishments. But as I mentor youth, I'm mentoring youth at Wagner High School, Sam Houston, and ML King. Now, I have what I say to the public about my hope for our young men and all of that, but the reality of it, I'm not seeing the future doctors. I'm not seeing that. Just some of the things that Mr. Matthews is saying about a lost generation. When I mention those things to them, well, they don't have the grades to back it up because they're not serious about school. Or this kid, one kid, we took a picture recently where we were doing things with him. He threw gang signs in the picture after we had been just talking to him for hours as far as that. So I'm concerned because since it's just us in here, these are the best and brightest of our community in here. Is there a next generation of future doctors and lawyers and professionals and community leaders? Is it possible? And what do we need to do to ensure that we have someone to take your job when you retire?
Well, good afternoon. I have to say we have to have a next generation of African American or black doctors. If we don't, we're going to increase the disparities that we already see in our health care among African Americans. We know there are huge disparities in health care. And with that, patients tend to identify and do better with doctors that look like them. So how can we do that? Really, a lot of these gentlemen really already spoke to how do we get that next generation of black doctors. You know, what I see is what someone said here already. We have a fragmented community. You know, back in the day, our community was all together. Our doctors lived in the community. Our kids saw the doctors. They saw the teachers. So there was that constant reinforcement that you mentioned. There was that constant exposure to people so they can aspire to those type of professions. And now what do we see? We live on the north side, the east side, south side. We're all over the place. So now we have varying degrees of perception on who can do what. If you grew up on this side of town, you're not getting that reinforcement. If you grew up on this other side of town, you may get it, or you may go to school and get something different. So how do we improve that? You know, personally, my parents divorced when I was young. I grew up in a single parent home. I grew up not in the projects, but across the street from the projects in Beaumont, Texas. But I had grandparents, I had uncles who invested in me and always told me that I could be whatever it is I wanted to be. So how do we create that village that we have seen to have lost over this time? I guess he's getting to me. So the other thing that keeps folks from going into medical school really is the cost and the time. There's a huge time commitment to become a physician, and now you want instant gratification. So how do we get people to commit that time? How do we get them to overcome that cost? Really, it's a personal decision. Do you want to commit that time to do that? But cost, there's some things that we can do. You know, there are loan repayment programs, especially for people going into urban and rural communities to practice medicine. But, you know, those programs don't get funded. So, again, somebody mentioned voting. So how do we vote for those legislators to help promote that funding for those programs? And then mentoring is huge, but we have to have layers of mentoring. You know, we really need our high schoolers to be role models for our middle schoolers. We need our college kids to be role models for those in grade school. We need our medical students and so on and so forth. We really need to have these layers of mentoring programs. And it really sounds like we're out there, but we just need to collaborate and be able to come together again as that village.
Excellent, excellent. That's Dr. Young, y'all. And we have to realize that we have people like him. He's the senior medical director. How many of you have heard of WellMed? We've heard of WellMed. How many of us knew there's a black African American who is the senior director of WellMed, the doctor over all the doctors? We need to know that. In this room today, I see a few people. I'm not going to see all of you, but I see in the back a gentleman who's one of the executives at Valero, one of the top technology experts in the nation. Dr. Gooding, could you please wave your hand? Please stand, sir. Right there, right there. So when we talk about these companies, we know we have blacks at Valero in that hierarchy. Theo Guidry is a senior vice president there, so they are there. So that's what we're working on, and I got a surprise for you at the end. We got the follow-up figured out. We're going to really follow up with this. So let's keep it moving. Now, we've covered the youth. We've started to get a little bit into the males as far as things. Let's work on the image, because I heard that mentioned. Mr. Lake, you mentioned that. Naaman Richardson here from the United States Navy. As I mentioned, when we worked with the boys, one of the first things that he did, he corrected their image. They were in there in a session learning about all of these different things, but their look wasn't right. They weren't serious. They weren't presenting themselves. I want you to speak with us about how do we get our young men to adopt an image where people will take them serious and they'll be successful in the world today, sir.
Good morning. Good evening. I'm sorry. Thanks again, Dr. Kelly, for inviting me. I wear a military uniform. My uniform is going to be crisp. It's going to be clean because it has to be. All right. When I show up to work in the morning, I have to be in front of a group of people that's watching me. All right. When I walk in a room, they're watching me as soon as I walk in the room. Not so much from a military standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. I have a 5-year-old and I have a 10-month-old son. I even correct my 10-month-old on the way he carries his little jumper. I'm being serious. I'm being serious. He's starting early. You know, and I tell my wife sometimes, don't fasten it up. If it's supposed to be fasten it. All right? Because if he happen to run out of the street and somebody see him, I want him to say that's a well-dressed little boy. And I want him to be taken serious. No, I say that to say with the youth, in order for them to be taken serious, you have to be clean. I don't care if it's dreadlocks. I don't care if it's long dreads, bald head, goatee, full beard. Clean it up. Clean it up. Because these business leaders in here, we're the people that do the hiring and the firing. All right? And I promise you, if one of those brothers show up at your door, you're going to turn them around. All right? But instead of turning them around from now on, here's what I do. Everywhere I go, I keep an extra shirt and an extra tie. All right? Start keeping some of that stuff around your office because they're not going to ask for help. All right? Give them what they need instead of talk about them. Now, we donate to the Salvation Army. We donate to Goodwill. Keep that stuff for your young brothers and sisters. Save that dress. That's what's going to help them with their image. All right? Not 2 Chainz, not Rick Ross and all that other stuff that they see on TV. But that's who they envision. They don't want to be like the people in this room. Ask them who you want to be when you grow up. I want to be a rapper. I want to be a record producer. And Dr. Ron talks about that a lot. Why not be the owner of the company? Because they don't want to dress like it. They want to wear the britches down. Let's help. We can all point the finger and say, oh, that little brother look bad. But instead of talking about him, give him what he needs. Give that sister what she needs to get that job.
Thank you, sir. United States Navy, y'all. United States Navy. And that's impressive that you're a brother in the Navy because not too many years ago, all a brother could be was a cook in the U.S. Navy. So one of the last services to let African-American men shine in there. So it's great to see your service there. Great to see. It had me thinking when we start talking about preparing our young men, one of our executives, he's not here today, but he owns a major company. I'm not going to say his name, but we have a black man who has a major company here in San Antonio. He invited a young man in for an interview, and during the interview, everything was going good. He was giving him his shot. It was his chance to get this big job and everything. And during the interview, the young man did like this. He stopped the interview, and he said, this interview's done. Obviously, whoever's calling you or checking that phone is more important than this 6-figure job that you're applying for. And he said, I don't want to send you out of here, but I'm going to send you out of here because if you made that mistake in this room, you'll make that mistake when you're managing one of my $1 million budgets in that position. So that's why we got to teach. Mr. Gooding, you got something for that? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it. That's it. That's it. Yes, sir. Mr. DeBro. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Yeah, I was just about to go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
He is one of the original ministers for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he's right here in our city. His name is Minister Bashir Muhammad. And you're talking about bringing the community together. You have to bring ministers from the nation this month.
Right.
Mr. Bashir.
Yes, sir. How you doing? How you doing? All righty. Thank you. Thank you. And to tie in how historic he is, I remember as a high school senior hearing you speak, and I was very motivated. I had only heard the things from Public Enemy and things like that, but we actually went to hear you speak and to see someone here in San Antonio. So we're glad to have you, somebody that's part of history, y'all. Definitely. Give it up one more time. One more time. And also, I think Mr. Charles Williams is here. Mr. Williams, where you at? Give it up for Mr. Williams, Williams Barber College. All right. And we talked on the phone recently, and he is an icon in the community here. So we're glad just to have you. We talked about business. I don't know if you were here when we talked about that, but you've put careers for a lot of young black men. You've given them a career that provided for their family like that. Because we talk about our professionals, but let's not forget our barbers and beauticians and all of that. Anybody in here in those fields? Let's give it up for them, y'all. Definitely all of our black business owners. Mr. Williams, do you have anything? You have anything you want to say to us, sir? Yes, yes. Right. Yeah. Right. Right, right.
We don't talk to our young people about becoming entrepreneurs. One of the reasons is it's not easy.
Right.
It's hard work. It's long hours. It's commitment. It's dedication. And sacrifice.
Right.
And we've kind of gotten away from that. Now, part of the problem, one of the gentlemen touched on, part of the problem is that our business leaders, in many instances, does not live what we conceive of. I was fortunate when I come here, I was 19. And I was exposed to movers and shakers on a daily basis. Sandra Bland, I.C. Collins, Velmo Beverly, G.J. Sutton, Mr. Inns over at Wheeler High School. All the people that really was making the difference in that community. I saw them almost on a daily basis. So I aspired to be like some of those business people that I saw.
Right.
And we've lost that because what has happened, we moved away and we left and created a vacuum.
Right.
It's kind of like the blind leading the blind.
Right.
Our kids cannot be leaders when they have not been exposed to it. They cannot act like professional folk when they
Right.
have no professional folk in their environment.
Right.
So like it or not, we all are who we are because of environmental indoctrination. And in many instances, what do we see? We see the hustle, the pimp, prostitutes, and that's what they aspire to be.
Right.
They don't see Kerman, who was a general contractor 45 years ago on the East Side.
Okay.
They don't see Mr. Mackey, who was a general contractor. They don't see, there's a building on Hackberry Street named after a gentleman who was really a general contractor who built First Baptist Church. It had
Okay.
something to do with the church over there on Martin Luther King.
Okay.
The guy was a real contractor. I saw that guy. Cuny White was his name. Most of us know his name.
Right.
There was
Okay.
Mr. Hodge, who ran the first Texaco service station owned and operated by a black man on Commerce Street and Mesquite 50 years ago.
Right.
And he did it in a very fine way.
Gotcha. Okay.
People talked about going to Hodges, and then of course there was another gentleman by the name of Joe
Okay, sir.
You had one, but not two. Cost for 3 Gulf certifications. Random offensive. I mean, that was not junk cars sitting around.
Right.
You saw our car, it was clean and polished like it was supposed to be. You had mechanics dressed like mechanics. And then, of course, I don't want to forget the famous Lifesaver Grill.
Okay.
It was a restaurant on East Commerce Street owned by John Grill.
Okay. And Mr. Williams, what we need, what I'm hearing from that, and we're going to come back to the business part, we've got to document our history. Because many of our young people, it's their first time hearing that. Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to come back to that because at the end, we're following up with all this. And when we touch on the business piece, as we've discussed, we're going to work on that. Let's give it up one more time for Mr. Charles Williams, y'all. All right. Many of us have got haircuts there many a day. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. That's it. Good friend of mine, and his wife was my 3rd grade teacher, so we're all connected right there. Charles Hutt. Charles Hutt. Now I want to stay on this. I want to see what you got. Yes, yes, Ms. Watson. Yes, yes. Here you go.
Going back to the image, there's a group in San Antonio called Career Gear. A lot of people know Dress for Success, which is for women, but there's something called Career Gear, which is for men. And if you need clothes for a business or someone you know, they give it to you for free. And if you have suits in your closet, you need to donate them to Career Gear because it's a recycling and it's part of Haven for Hope and they have other locations. But they need clothing and it's a place where you can get and young people can get suits and they don't have to pay for them.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, myself and Show, we serve on the board of Goodwill along with Jackie Gorman, and we want all of you to find those organizations out in the community for Black African Americans can get involved in that spend hundreds of millions of dollars all over this community.
That's it. That's it. Good job, Ms. Watson. Ms. Watson. And that's what we want to hear, y'all. That's what we want to hear. And I'm glad Councilman Warwick is here because I don't know if he knows when the MLK March, as I started to build my network, as people don't realize these events that we do, I have one of the largest networks. We have SA Black professionals, over 4,000 people, all of that. I donated my services to the MLK Commission, right? I went to them. I said, hey, I know how to organize people. I can get stuff. We can make this bigger. Y'all, they looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, who are you? This is closed off. So to hear Ms. Watson say, get involved and do that, many of our younger generation, we don't feel that. And then when we go and we get turned away. So we need to know those people like Renee Watson who are saying, get involved and come on. Because we get the cold shoulder, y'all. I was ready. I said, I can make this MLK thing. I got it ready to go. I went before that group. I don't know if any of y'all were there. I presented to them. I never heard from them since. They were like, we got our own thing. Who's this new guy coming along? We got to support each other, y'all. Got to. Let me keep it moving. Let me keep it moving. Yes, oh, Dr. Anderson, jump in. Jump in. Yes, sir. Yes. Yep. Dress for Success is women. That's it. Yep. Okay. Right. All right. Right.
Churches, if you wanted to do a Career Gear clothing collection
right.
at your church one Sunday,
right.
Everybody bring your suits, they'll come and pick them up.
Very good, very good. And the gentleman that just spoke, that is Dr. Howard Anderson, former president of the NAACP, current poll mark of Kappa Alpha Psi, who does the Guide Right program for you. Dr. Anderson, all right, all right. And he was on our panel last year, so we're glad to have you. Yes, ma'am, you got something. Jump in, yes. Please stand. Please stand. Right. 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 Wow. Right. Hey, that's great. Well, if you can get in touch with your principal, we're going to follow you because I know I can. So glad to have you. Let's give it up for our Roosevelt student here. All right, all right. And let your principal know that we got an army, all these people in here. We can get there because we understand that's where the majority of our African-American boys are now, Roosevelt and Judson and all those places. So we're ready. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
apprenticeship. The wall or the barrier appears to be that the salary level for entry is not met by young or even mid-range employers.
Right.
And yet we have young African-American males who could be directed
Right.
into apprenticeship programs. And I think there's somewhere in that we need to explore that before Mr. Obama leaves office.
Excellent, excellent. Definitely, definitely. Give it up for that idea, y'all. We got to get them going. And I know Byron Miller is working on some things with that, so we're going to come back. But I've got to get on from Senator Menendez's office because they're covering the state, y'all. We have statewide representation in the room today. And Miss Darnell, Dr. Darnell, is going to talk about, because we talked about the boys, but I wanted to save this part for the end because a lot of us don't realize it in our schools today. We hear about the black males, black male this, black male that, black male. But when you print out those discipline reports and what's really going on, it's our black females who are involved in most of the incidents. And the first thing we see is the image and the way that they conduct themselves. So Dr. Darnell, could you please tell us what are your ideas in order to get young black women prepared to work in your position? Because many of them today aren't ready to set foot in your office and work with you because they just don't have the preparation. What do you suggest?
We are certainly getting them prepared. Let me just start with Damon. Damon is now a intern in our office. Damon spoke to you earlier. But one of the things that I have been fortunate to do is be a mentor to a great woman in the city. Ruth Jones McClendon is my mentor. In her program, the McClendon Scholar, she took students from UTSA, and she said, I want 5 scholars, top students within the city, but I want opportunity for students out of 120, out of the Eastside. So when you choose your student, you can choose whoever you want to from this 5,000 students that may apply, but you better make sure there's a seat for Eastside, for my student, in your program. I was that student. The legacy of Ruth Jones McClendon continues with me and everyone else who went through her program. And so this is an example of what we can do. What can we do? We can open the door for opportunity. We can say, you can do whatever you want to do, but guess what? Make a seat for mine. If we do not stand up and say, make a seat for mine, there will be no seat. There will be no opportunity. We brought 100 boys to the state capitol because we understood that the opportunity may be there for everyone else, but I can tell you I am 5 of the top legislative directors, well, I'm saying the senior legislative directors and analysts in that building, 5 who are black. 5 women, I can name them on my hand, who work to assist to make policy that affects all of us. So when the 5 of us are called to say, should pastors have an opportunity to choose who they marry, they call me. That's the Christian one. If they want to choose who gets government subsidy and how they do medical care, they call one other. So they only have a few of us to choose from. So the answer is opportunity. And if we don't create the opportunity becomes, between legacy. He said that there's a vacuum over on the east side. The vacuum doesn't happen if you mentor someone right along. Ruth Jones McClendon said to me, wear your church clothes every day. The first day I was in her office, she said, wear your church clothes every day. That means be prepared every day. Every day for the opportunity to represent your community. Every day so that you can, your aptitude, your confidence, all of that is going to be created in this building. And you know what? I'm going to cultivate it. So we have to cultivate opportunities. We have to cultivate the next generation. And that happens through the legacy of our community. And that's all I have to say about that.
That's it. That's it. Hey, there's nothing like the spirit and passion of the black woman. You can conquer a nation with it, y'all. Keep it on that note. Pastor Grant, please stand. The only female pastor of a major church that I know of. I think there's maybe one more in the city. There are several, but Right, right. Well, I've been there, and it's nice. It has a nice Greater Ball Tabernacle. So we're gonna stay on that because I warned her ahead of time what I wanted to hear from her. But I'm concerned about our young ladies. Dr. Darnell addressed the image, but what do you think is the final plan to reach them? You know, when I enter the campus, I remember walking onto a campus. I'm dressed like this as a consultant, and a young African American woman called me the N-word. What's up? What's up, N? What's like you that comfortable with me? You know, like, you know, what's going on? There's that image and that seriousness is lacking. And it's happening in groups. You know, there's 10, 12 groups that are fighting. The majority of fights in our school, we know the videos, the twerk videos, the fight videos that are all over Facebook. What are we going to do to save? We have all this, my brother's keepers, save the young males. What are we going to do for our young girls?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. One thing that I hear over and over again from the young ladies that I have the opportunity to pastor is, I don't have a father. My father's not in the home. And so we're going to have to find a way to create community. We are celebrated as a society that we are individuals. We put ourselves up by our own bootstraps. Nothing could be further from the truth. We learn to be human by being in community. So we need to, just like the gentleman said, we're going to have to find a way to recreate this community in a way where the young people who are at Roosevelt and are at King and are at Sam Houston, where they, even though their biological father's not there, they know that Dr. Kelly's there or Dr. Alexander's there or somebody is there to model protection, to model provision, to provide opportunity, and to give them a sense of security. That young woman that got thrown away, and thrown around the room didn't have a father in the home, and the mothers were sketchy. Our children are in crisis, and it's our opportunity to step in and show them and provide a communal, not just one, but a communal barricade and boundary of protection and for provision. So I invite everybody here, how can we recreate this, your mentoring project, as a group project where young women and young men can have that familiar support.
That's it. Thank you, Reverend Grant. Dr. Clark, I got to get Dr. Clark. Please stand. This young man, we recently started, it's unfortunate that at the University of Texas, we have to have a Black Ex-Students Association because the black students are not really included. So we had to form our own. And we hold a meeting. We just chartered the new organization last year, and this young man shows up. And we don't know about him. And we who are you? And he said, I'm Dr. Langston Clark. I'm a professor at UTSA. Well, how old are you, Dr. How old are you, Dr. Clark? 31. 31. So, this brother, and you're from New York, New Jersey? Born in Buffalo. New Yorker, right? Right. So, I saw that, and I stopped and I paused and I said, here's a young man that beat the system, that made it, that has a PhD at 31, who's a professor at UTSA, and we don't even know about it. And he's right there. I want your perspective, from in your perspective, because your life is set. By doing what you did earlier, you're just going to go up and up and up and up. You're going to be college president in 10 years and all of that stuff. So tell us, what was the drive? What got you away from all those barriers that could have stopped you and allowed you to make it to your level at 31 years old?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Thank you for inviting me because I'm new to San Antonio and I don't know many of you. I didn't grow up in the hood, so I don't want to mischaracterize my experience. My parents always strove to put me in the best schools. I went to high school in New Jersey, so most of the time I claim New Jersey. My high school was very diverse, but if you went there, you would say it's a white school. But what really catapulted me to where I am today is my experience that I had at my historically black college as an undergraduate student. And what happened is, at a black college, your advisor is your professor. So Dr. Webb went to Ohio State for his master's degree, okay? I mean, for his PhD, so he sent me there for my master's degree. And so Dr. Hodge, who was my advisor, these are both black men, at Ohio State for my master's degree. His wife went to North Carolina A&T, but years before I did, so there was a connection there. She's also a professor, but they sent me to Texas to my advisor, Dr. Lewis Harrison, there. So at the University of Texas, we have this African American Male Research Initiative, and it's basically a pipeline of young brothers to go through, get their PhD, and be mentored as they mentor other people, which allow me to be connected to you. So no matter where you, I hear a lot of different things. I hear people who are talking about assimilation, right? Then I hear people talking about being in corporate America. And sometimes it seems like the conversations run contrary. But I really got catapulted at my black college. Like I was thoroughly black. Like I knew who I was, and I didn't lose that as I went through the process. And I found those networks even in those white schools. So all of it's kind of connected, but it wasn't just me. There's all these other people right in the community that touched me and allowed me to get to where I am.
All right. And I done made it through all my panelists. I got one more. I can't take his time. I've made it through all of them. I can't believe I made it through. I was like, how are we going to get through? Y'all, we had 20 panelists, and we did it in 2 hours. So, all right, Reverend Price, we've heard a lot today, but there's still one thing that we haven't covered. And you can stand up so they can see the pastor of St. John Baptist Church here. Hip-hop. Hip-hop is a culture invented in the late 1970s in the Bronx, New York, primarily for African Americans and Puerto Ricans only in that borough of New York. Never intended to be this multi-billion-dollar industry which it has become today. As, I don't know which presenter said that, I think that was Mr. Richardson, our young men don't want to be me. They don't want to be you. They want to be Future. They want to be Rick Ross. They want to be maybe Jay-Z, but Jay-Z's a little too conservative now. He wears suits and nice clothes. They don't want that. This doesn't impress them, right? How are we going to combat something that's on their computer, on their phone, on their TV all day long? It's there. It's saying, this is what's cool. Pull your pants down lower. Put all gold in your teeth. Wear 3 gold chains. How do we compete with that to help save our youth?
Thank you, Dr. Ron. Well, I'm going to begin by saying we can't demonize or hate on our youth. Hip-hop, it's a genre of music. From my era, you got Rick James, Give It To Me, Baby. So I think we first got to just be real. Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing. And so the lyrics didn't just get bad. And so some of us, since we've been baptized, we have forgotten that we also guilty of backing it up and dropping it like it's hot. So don't demonize them, don't kill them. But I think the way we counter the hip-hop culture has been said already in here. I think it's with education. The challenges to our youth is single-parent homes, poor schools, communities that's not strong enough to give them what they need. And so to counter the hip-hop culture, you got to have stronger homes, stronger communities, stronger churches. And so what we've tried to do as a coalition of churches, something that was founded back in 1999 by Dr. E. Thurman Walker, the late T, my brother, we brought together churches from across San Antonio, not just from the east side, but across San Antonio that believed in what we were trying to do, and that's empower our families, strengthen our community. So education is something that we have to, as a community, be serious about. So what do? We have a banquet. We leverage money. Since we've started this thing, we've given out over $2 million in scholarships to our kids. Over $2 million in scholarships. We partnered with our last mayor, pre-K for SA. We believe it starts at an early age, and so we was a part of the process to help pass the vote. So I think what we have to do as a people is be engaged and fight for those things that will improve the quality of life for our families, for our youth. And so, Wes say, if you don't love them, you can't lead them, right? And you can't save them if you don't, serve them. And so we have to just stop gathering and talking about it and join ourselves to something that's doing it, And so I would invite you to look up CCSA, the Community of Churches for Social Action. It's not many groups in our city who have given out over $2 million, And so we're doing it, and we're doing it well. And so we just believe, that God blesses that kind of thing.
All right. Reverend Price. Now look, I'm going to do something that we've rarely seen an African-American event do. We're going to end it on time. But here's how this works, though. They haven't kicked us out. I haven't heard nothing about them kicking us out. The most important part of this meeting is going to happen now when we mix, when we exchange business cards, when we communicate. That's where the power is. And as I told you, I had something for you at the end because I gotta get you out of here on time. I told you I had something for you at the end. And if you got something, we'll talk about it at the end because we gotta wrap it up at this part. But the number one thing that people have asked for from all of this, because as you know, I do events once a month. And if you're not following us, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of that. And I promise to do at least one thing per month. But the follow-up to this, because last year we got one complaint. They were like, what do we do now? We're hyped up. We're ready to go. We're ready to do this. And from talking with various leaders and things like that, what we need is something that brings us together. So we're forming the San Antonio Black Leadership Council. We're going to meet once a month, and we're going to bring together the best and brightest of all fields and all of that, and we're going to address issues. We're going to take things from the community. We're going to put money behind things. I hear young men in here that need jobs. I hire people all the time. I just don't know you need a job. We're going to bring it all together, and we're going to meet regularly, and you're going to see some change. If we do one thing per month, that's all we aim to do. But we want to get all these executives, all these important people. You don't have to have a title or a position. We just want to have a voice, because right now our community doesn't have a voice. As I told you, they didn't want me in My Brother's Keeper. I created 3 mentoring programs. They didn't want me on the MLK Commission. I'm coming out with MLK Youth Week, which is going to be one of the biggest events, and I'm going to partner with my man Show, because he's the only person that reached out. Show invited me when I had all these bright ideas. He invited me and let me speak at his event. I think he called me the same day for that, like that. So that support, that reaching out, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get together and we're going to reach out and help each other. Y'all, what we did right here, yeah, we can come together for a party, for the club and all these things. We made this standing room only today. Give it up for yourselves, y'all. I want to thank you. This is definitely not the last time. You're going to hear a lot more. Make sure we have your email. We're going to bombard you with knowledge and information, and we're going to bring it together. Definitely stick around, exchange business cards, talk. Y'all been great. Give it up for yourselves one more time, y'all. Thank you. Y'all have a safe drive home. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for the support.